Podcast with me, Jeff Balke, and Mike Stanton, as always. Uh, what an entertaining first sort of almost week of baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, opening day on Thursday, Astros went through a weird couple of games, and then suddenly they can hit. Like, who knew? Who knew they could hit? We'll talk about that and much more. Mike, how's your day going so far?
It's going just fine. Mine has just kind of started. You've already had a tough week today.
I've had a fascinating morning. Yes, it's true.
So yeah, let's just get into it. This first week really has been a roller coaster, and for the Astros team, I think this is what we're going to get this year.
I think so too.
There's going to be some times that they're going to look very, very good because they can still pitch.
Mhm.
Then there's going to be other times like the first two games, especially opening day. It looked like they thought opening day was going to be next week. So
That's exactly right.
but listen, when you don't hit, you always look
Yeah.
lethargic, and
Right.
that's what happened in the first couple games. But Jordan has swung the bat.
Oof.
Christian Walker has gotten off to a good start.
Jose
You know,
Altuve is getting walks. He leads the team
Isn't
in
that
walks.
crazy?
What is happening? The
Cats and dogs.
living together. Exactly, 100%.
Right.
That is correct. So yeah, there's and of course, you've had good at bats from Isaac Paredes. No shock there.
Right.
Carlos Correa had a big 2-run single last night. Like everybody up and down. Cam Smith had his first homer. Bryce Matthews has had a homer. Joey Loperfido is one of the better just everyday hitters, apparently.
It's contagious.
remarkable.
Listen,
Yeah.
hitting is contagious, just like not hitting can be contagious.
Yeah, we've seen that.
And it looks like that's really what's happened. If you guys got hot, Jordan's hit a couple of home runs. Now all of a sudden everybody loosens up a little bit,
Mhm.
and hey, the quality of contact gets better. Jose has really been fascinating though, and
He
we
has
have
been.
seen him in the past try this. It just doesn't work. It's just not him. But uh, because what we've seen in the past is when he would get more selective, he would
Yeah.
get too passive. He would just kind of shut everything down, and now all of a sudden he's taking pitches down the middle. This is actually this is a different approach. This isn't
It is.
just okay. I'm just not going to swing. This is what I'm going to try and make the pitchers put the ball in the zone, and any
Right.
hitter is better than when they don't do that.
Right.
Especially a guy like Jose because he's got such great bat to ball skills.
He does, and I want to talk about him for just a minute because he had after his 2 home run game, which which was super fun. Obviously, he talked to Julian Morales afterwards, and he mentioned the fact that he spent some time in this offseason working on the idea of waiting for his pitch. He has always been. I think the stat that I heard in the game was 47% first ball swing, first pitch swing or something like that.
And that seems low.
Right. Exactly. That's through his career. There have been years where it's been way higher than that. And but he said that he really made a conscious effort to try and cut down on the first pitch swings unless they were his pitch. And of
Yeah.
course, the 2 home runs, the first of those 2 home runs was a first pitch fastball,
Mhm.
like right down the middle, or a first pitch slider, excuse me, right down the middle, and he yanked it. And I think that I really hope that takes because he's such an incredibly good hitter.
Yeah.
That if he waits and gets the pitches and he's not overly aggressive or not, like you mentioned, overly passive, he's going to get a lot of hits this year, and it's nothing but good for the Astros.
And it takes it takes just some mental discipline because
Mhm.
he's just an ultra aggressive guy.
He
And
is.
what we've always said was you don't want to take that away from him because that's who he is. That's what has made him the future Hall of Famer that he is.
Yes.
But if he could just calm it down and listen, what it's really going to do, it's going to make the pitchers, attack him a little differently.
Yep.
Listen, I can't just flip the ball up there first
Nope.
pitch, throw the ball in the dirt, or throw the ball over his head, and he's hacking at it. And now all of a sudden he's taking those pitches. And listen, it's a small sample size, and
Mhm,
we'll
sure.
see what he's doing in a month. See if he can continue this. But hey, he looks much better. He looks what I see from him right now. He looks comfortable in what he's doing. And the previous times we've seen him try and start, working the count more, taking
Yeah.
pitches, he just never looked comfortable. It just always looked like, he looks like he's trying to be somebody he's not. This is a little different. This just seems like he's a little bit more comfortable in his own skin,
Yes.
and not just going up there hacking at the rosin bag.
I think you're 100% right about that. And what's also interesting about this, and we'll delve a little bit more into the ABS system as we get to further along the way here. But there was a really interesting article about how the ABS system has made it much better for short players. It
Oh
shrinks
yeah.
the zone, because the zone is so much smaller against small players, and Jose Altuve could be benefiting from that. Let's talk about Jordan because like what a difference having Jordan in the lineup makes. I
A
mean,
healthy Jordan. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Holy crap. Like, I mean, this is exactly this is when the Astros have this Jordan. I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not super concerned about who else is producing runs. Like he is such a difference maker in the lineup because of his abilities, both as a hitter as well as a long ball hitter. He just changes the dynamic of your entire lineup when he's in there. And look at what's happened.
Yeah, he is one of the few players that he makes not just the person in front of him, not just the person behind him. He changes the attitude of the whole lineup.
He
And
does.
there's really no such thing as someone that can carry the load in baseball all by himself.
Right.
Jordan's pretty close. I mean,
That guy's
you're talking
unbelievable.
about an OPS of
What
over
is it?
1400, 1440. His OP, this is the gaudy one.
Small sample size.
Yeah, true. His OPS plus.
Oh, I
Okay, now
can't
remember,
imagine.
OPS plus means
Right.
100 is league average.
Right.
Okay, his OPS plus 312. He is over
Bonkers.
200%
Oh my
higher
God.
than league average.
He
And
is
again,
just,
like you said, it is a small sample
but
size, but my
still,
goodness, is it just good to see Jordan healthy and Jordan swinging the bat. And
you just can't
like I
pitch to
said,
him.
even Christian Walker has swung the bat pretty well here at the
Yes.
beginning. I mean, these guys are looking good at the moment. We'll see how
Yeah.
long this can stick around.
Well, Walker in his approach is a little bit different. And he talked about that. He's sort of shortened up a little bit on his swing. He's taken a little bit of the uppercut out of it, not a lot.
Right.
He's only missed like hit the two balls that he hit for doubles, like off the top of the wall. Both of those would have been home runs in 25 of 30 ballparks.
Right.
So he's really close to hitting home runs as well. It's not going to take much for that to turn around. He looks kind of like a different hitter in the box this year.
He's lost a little bit of weight.
He has. That's
Okay.
right.
Now, I mean, was he big? No, he wasn't big,
No.
but he just got a little lighter, which
Yeah.
in a lot of cases, guys become a little bit more athletic.
Yeah.
And he talked about how he worked hard this spring to kind of flatten out his swing, get
Yeah.
out of that big uppercut. Because listen, as a pitcher, this is something obviously I pay attention to
Yeah.
all the time on a daily basis. When hitters swing and miss at pitches, especially pitches in the zone, especially fastballs,
Mhm.
they swing and miss under the ball. Now, some of that is by design
Right.
because they're trying to get lift, they're trying to get the ball in
Mhm.
the air, but it's a very fine line. I mean, the old saying, it's a game of inches, it's a game of millimeters.
Right.
That there's between making contact, popping a ball up, and driving the
Yes.
ball out of the ballpark can be as different as inch and a half.
Absolutely. And he obviously seems to have adjusted in a way that so far he looks much more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you somebody who really listen. I'm not sure I quite estimated correctly how important Carlos Correa was going to be to the Astros. And I
Mhm.
say that not just because of his defense, which is just beyond tremendous.
It's like he
I
hasn't
mean,
even missed a beat going back to shortstop.
unbelievable. Like, it doesn't matter where he plays. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter where he plays. He's making
right,
plays there that most people just cannot make. And he's okay at the plate, not great, but we're not expecting Carlos to be a world beater at the plate.
right.
But the leadership thing, this is something that you can see it on the field. Every time there's a pitchers meeting, guess who's in that meeting? Carlos Correa is in that meeting. Like, there is
Right.
something about him that is just different. And he comes in, and last year I'm sure he wasn't able to fully assert himself. He got traded in the middle of the year.
Mhm.
But this year you can tell there's a certain command that he has on the field with the other players, a respect that they give him. And it is a different dynamic. It, like, you could see him, guys like the younger guys, they want to be around him. They
Yeah.
want to talk to him. They want to hear what he has to say. They're high five. When he made that incredible play in the outfield from short, and then he's so far in the outfield that Cam Smith came up and high fived him. Like that's how far in right field he was. Like you can tell that he is a difference maker just by his presence. And that's something that the Astros haven't really had the last couple of years.
Well, that's where his real value is.
Yeah.
He is still as an elite defensive player as we've had. To tell you the truth, I mean, other than maybe Bobby Witt Jr., I think he's still probably the best shortstop in the American League. And it's crazy that which I'm sure he still takes ground balls there on a daily basis. So it's it's not a weird position. He spent his whole life at shortstop. But for him to go, from third base and go play shortstop, just like ho hum, no big deal, and then just all of a sudden start throwing the leather all over the place. It truly shows how gifted he is on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, he's never been an elite player.
No,
he's always been average.
He's a clutch player,
maybe a little bit above average.
Yeah, he's a clutch hitter, but not a great hitter.
His ability to make spectacular plays and the routine play defensively, and his leadership side, and that I thought that was. I don't want to say the Astros were missing it, but I mean, you bring a player with his kind of leadership and you put him on the team. I mean, how can the team not benefit? I mean, we saw it the other day. We haven't got to Lance McCullers, and we'll get to him in just a second.
Yeah, exactly.
But he, when he started having issues in the seventh inning, heck, he almost beat the catcher out there.
Yep.
To talk to Lance, and we know that they're very tight and everything, and the thing is, Carlos knows the buttons to push.
He does.
Lance McCullers Jr. And
he absolutely does.
I
think in a lot of guys he knows.
Sure.
He has an instinctive quality.
Well, he just carries so much weight.
He does,
and weight in a positive way.
Yes.
That when he walks in, he commands the room. When he is, when he walks into the clubhouse, everyone, oh, hey, Carlos is here. And what does that mean? Is it something he does differently than he has in the past? No, it's just with all the trials and tribulations he's been through, I mean, is there another player that has lost more money in free agency than Carlos Correa?
No
I don't think so, because I think it's like $600 or $700 million.
It's crazy. It's crazy amounts.
And you know what? He never missed a beat. It was never a hiccup. He was, when he was on the field, he was completely engaged with whatever team he was on.
Yep.
And I think that shows. Just in the maturation process, just who he is as a man, not as a player, as a man.
Right.
I think it shows up on the field.
Well, so we'll hit one more thing about defense, because then I want to get into pitching. This team now feel like last year and the year before, the Astros did not feel like a great defensive team like they have been in the past. They felt good, right? And they were good, right? I think I want to say they're outs above replacement or something. We're still in the top 10,
sure,
or whatever. But
they're solid.
They feel more like an elite defensive team this year, and you can see it because they've got athletes all over the outfield, no matter who happens to be out there. You've got, Isaac Paredes can play second base, apparently, as we've seen. You've got a lot of versatility across the infield. You've got a Gold Glover playing first base. You've got a Gold Gloves at short and third when Jeremy Pena is healthy. This is a team that has a lot of defensive skills, and I was sort of happily impressed by that, because I wasn't sure, with some of the age issues that are coming up and stuff like that, if they were going to be as effective defensively, but they are. And they've made some incredible plays, and of course, like you said, the routine ones as well, and that's a big deal for this Astros team.
And really, I think what you're talking about mostly is their defensive play in the outfield has been solid. It's been good, but the infield has been spectacular. The left side of the infield. You're talking about Gold Glove winners in both positions, and in one position being a Platinum Glove winner.
Right, exactly.
And so, and the thing is, what you really like is the ability to, Pena can have a day off, and you can move
such a huge
you can
deal.
move Correa to shortstop, and you know what? You may get better.
Exactly.
And
certainly
then,
with
Perez
range,
can play third base, and you feel completely comfortable with that kind of situation where things are moving around. So having the ability to move guys around and not miss a beat defensively is a huge advantage for Joe Espada, just simply because now he doesn't have to worry about the defense, even though he can spell a guy here and there.
Yeah, it's such a huge deal for them. I feel like this is a team too that kind of goes as their defense goes. There's something about their level, like, and by the way, if you want any, like, if you want some comparison, watch the Angels series. The
Yeah,
Angels were abysmal defensively, and it
yeah,
cost them
it did.
dearly in that series. And they were terrible. And if you want to see good versus bad defense, that was the easiest way to see it on the field right there because they were, oof, that's
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah. I mean, the Angels look good the first 2 games. Mike Trout looks healthy. That's
Mike Trout,
always
yeah,
fun, and I think that,
yeah.
hey, a
Good for the
healthy
league.
Mike Trout is good for Major League Baseball. 100, yeah,
Absolutely.
there's
Mike,
no doubt. But you also saw that they have some issues.
oh, yeah.
So why don't we get to pitching now?
Let's do that because let's start with this. I want to start with something a little outside of the corner because Lance McCullers is going to dominate some of this. I want to talk about what we saw from Hunter Brown in game one versus today or yesterday, excuse me.
Okay.
Like, he was not terrible in terms of getting guys out in game one. He just couldn't find the strike zone.
Right.
Seemed to be his biggest problem. He found it yesterday and he was dominant. And so any worries about Hunter Brown, I think, should be set to the side.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody was really worried because when you have elite stuff and you have power stuff, there's going to
Mhm.
be times that the strike zone may elude you. Now, he still had 9 strikeouts in game one.
Mhm.
You were just kind of upset that he threw just shy of 100 pitches and he didn't get through 5 innings. And I
Right.
know he wasn't happy to come out of the game, but you completely understand on the first game of the season, and
Yep.
you've had countless pressure pitches just simply because you haven't been able to put the ball in the zone.
Right.
And then, I thought this. So, and then yesterday, yeah, he was outstanding. I mean, he moved the ball around like we've seen him do in the
Yep.
past. Last year he was, a Cy Young contender all the way through the season. I mean, and rightly so. I mean, this is one of the best right-handed pitchers, one of the best pitchers in the American League and all of baseball. And last night he showed that. But
Right.
I think that the biggest surprise in this first week has to be Lance McCullers Jr.
No question
I
about it.
mean, he went out and there were I saw in his first inning, maybe it was second inning, I saw like 3 pitches.
Right.
And I was like, this is a different dude.
No,
This
he's
and
where what
he's
happened to 27 curveballs in a row? Like,
well, and he first off, he looks like he's lost like 15 or 20 pounds.
absolutely
Okay.
he does. He looks
He and
thin.
listen, he was
Looks
never don't he was never
No,
overweight.
he
Don't
just
get
looks
me.
wiry now.
He was freaking jacked. That's what he
Yeah.
was. He was a gym rat. Now, spending as much time on the IL, you can understand, but he looked, I mean, he looked much more athletic.
Yeah,
Okay. And
agreed.
the other things I saw, the biggest one, he just slowed his tempo down. He was always just so fast. And what I mean by tempo, I'm not talking about in between pitches. I'm talking about during his delivery.
Mhm.
It's just a slower tempo, and it looks like his arm is the beneficiary of that. He also talked about how there was an approach change.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
one of the problems I think Lance has always had has been controlling the fastball. He has
Right.
never been able to put the fastball in the zone. That's why he throws so many breaking balls, because that was his control pitch. It's a
Right.
strikeout pitch, but it's also his control pitch.
Right.
But with that slower tempo, you saw better fastball command. He said, what are we trying to do now? Well, we're trying to get early outs. And that's exactly what he did. Put the ball in the zone, let the hitter swing,
Yep.
use that defense behind you. Just a tremendous start, his first start to this season.
That changeup looks wicked from him. I mean, it breaks both directions. Like, it was
Yeah.
just a really that was the thing that I think surprised me more about Lance. I wasn't, obviously no one was expecting to pitch 7 innings and be
Right.
that good, but the fact that he came up there and looked like a guy that has 5, 6 pitches instead of a guy that has like 2
Yeah.
was really surprising. Now, we've known obviously that he's had other pitches in his arsenal. He just hasn't been able to command them well enough to throw
Yeah,
them.
I don't think he's not throwing any new pitches. His changeup has
No.
always been filthy, but he's never been able to. And at times it has looked like an elite
Yeah.
changeup, and this is in the past. But with this new tempo, he's just able to repeat and move the ball around better. I mean,
That's a
it
really
doesn't
interesting
it doesn't
observation.
look like in my opinion, there's only one part of your body as a pitcher that can be rushed. Not go fast, but be rushed, and
Mhm.
that's your throwing arm. And that's what I always thought about Lance was that his arm was always behind his body. His body was always ready to go, and his arm wasn't quite into the throwing position. He looks better now. And is his arm in a different position? I'll have to go and
Yeah.
do some slow motion replay type stuff. But with the slower tempo, it gives his arm a chance to catch up to his body. And oh yeah, by the way, that's going to help him stay healthier.
Yes, and by the way, also speaking of that, it's gonna help him disguise his pitches better, because one of the things that was a knock on Lance a lot of times is that you could there it wasn't exactly he was tipping pitches, but he pitched a certain way that caused you to be like, "Okay, we can tell there's" he could change his curveball all over the place, but if he throws a different pitch,
Yeah.
you could kinda see it coming, and I don't think you can see it coming as well
Well,
now.
there's a couple other things here, and the first one is he was easy to sequence because there was only one sequence, and that was the breaking ball. Okay,
Right,
and one it may be a little harder, a little slower, any
right.
particular pitch. What I loved, and I always thought, because he came up talking about how he could change the shape and he could do
Mhm,
this and he could
right.
do that. Well, especially once he would get in trouble in a game,
Yeah.
he didn't change anything. And
Nope.
I felt like he threw his curveball, and I've said this many times. I feel like he throws his curveball too hard. He's throwing his curveball at 87, 88 miles an
Right,
hour. He's throwing his fastball in the low 90s.
right.
Sorry, that's not a curveball. That's a slider.
That's the
He
slider, right.
was throwing his curveball 80, 81 miles an hour. That's exactly where the curveball needs to be. I'm a big believer in speed differential. What is your hardest pitch? What is your slowest pitch? Your slowest pitch needs to be your curveball. And it needs to
Mhm.
be by a pretty good amount. So he's throwing 93, 94. He's throwing his curveball 80, 81. You got 12, 13 miles an hour. That's pretty good. I'd love to get it to be even a little bit bigger, but that's a
Mhm.
heck of a lot bigger than 6 or 8 miles an hour.
And out of curiosity with this, when you're talking about this kind of command, you're throwing the curveball, you're throwing the fastball, and you're trying to
Mhm.
get command on those things. When you're working on that pitch, obviously, I know a lot of pitchers are trying to get their delivery to look the same. The
Yeah.
ball release, the point, all those things, so that when you throw a pitch, it looks like a fastball, but it's not. When you're doing that with as and the speed differential is obviously a part of that, right?
Yeah.
Just when you release the ball. But how does someone go about changing that? Like, how does he go from throwing
Well,
88-mile-an-hour sliders to suddenly, I mean, did he change his hand position? Did he
yeah.
change the ball release? How do you do that?
So there's a couple things. First is probably just overall mentality of what you're trying to do.
Mhm.
And I think that he has always been, to say Lance McCullers Jr. is a max effort pitcher, I think is a vast understatement.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were saying
And listen,
2,400
hey,
rotations in a
I
spin
am
rate the other night.
I am in this category whatsoever. I spent my whole career pulling back on the reins. I never, to take an adage from the horse racing, I never had to go to the whip. That was never a problem for me.
Right.
I was always trying to stay under control, and I think Lance is the same thing. But I think he's had, with all the injuries, and again, the maturation process, we'll use that term again.
Mhm.
He's realized that I can't just grip it and rip it and throw it as hard as I freaking can every time, because the hardest part of hitting isn't location, it's speed differential.
Right.
That's why you have guys, how many times did we watch Zach Greinke throw a 67-mile-an-hour
That was
curveball
so
and
good.
nobody can freaking touch it?
No,
Why? Because it's so slow.
it's
And
so
the
slow.
hardest time hitters have, what they have the hardest time with is not velocity, not high velocity,
Yeah.
it's low velocity.
Yeah. Well, that's
And
why when
and
you see
so
guys come in,
so
position
that's
players pitching, it's like that,
that's the first. Well, they also tell all those guys, don't get hurt, lob the ball. They don't want you to
Right,
throw the ball. So the
right.
first is just overall mentality, and second is, how do you throw a breaking ball? Okay, so what you do is, you throw a fastball, your hand stays behind the ball, you backspin the ball. Okay, as you turn the ball a little bit, it turns into a cutter, it turns into a slider. And then when you get the fingers on the front side of the ball and you get top spin, the ball comes out this way. That's your curveball.
Hmm.
Okay. And listen, there's variations of all of this, but
Right.
the more you can get the fingers on the front side, the more you can create top spin, the bigger the break, the slower the speed. Because now you're going from being behind the ball when you release with your fingers to being in front of the ball when you release. And so you couple, getting a little bit more top spin on the ball, getting the
Hmm.
fingers on the front side, and then mentality of just not trying to throw it 1,000 miles an hour. Now all of a sudden you have speed differential, and you also get a bigger break.
Yeah. Well, pitching lesson from Mike Stanton here today, which is fantastic. Here's something here's one player. Speaking of kind of happy surprises, whatever. AJ Bluebaugh, like this guy has come in. He is exactly what the Astros needed in the middle of their relief corps, right?
Yeah,
A guy who can come in, he can throw 3 innings, no sweat, no
right.
problem, or come in and throw 1 inning. He's got enough his different pitches are enough. And I don't not everybody had him pegged as being on the roster at
Right.
all, and he just
Yeah,
comes
he,
in
he
and is
pitched
like
well in the spring. Yeah.
yeah, he did pitch well in the spring, and I think it's a really interesting like, when you look at the bullpen because there are some injuries in the bullpen, and there's different guys kind of playing in and out of there. This is kind of a different squad, and, of course, Brian Abreu had some issues the other day with some velocity problems, things like that. They're gonna treat him with kid gloves. But you look at it and you go, man, the Astros have some relievers that Ryan Weiss came in there. He's
Yeah.
looked very good. It's an interesting group of relievers, kind of different from what the Astros have had in
Well,
previous seasons.
there was a little bit of talk recently about the Astros, how they have changed kind of their mentality of what a reliever is.
Mhm.
That, everybody doesn't need to be high velocity, which everybody's still high velocity,
Yeah.
but everybody also doesn't need to be a short leverage reliever. You need guys because starting pitching just simply, and this is across the league, this isn't just for
Yes.
the Astros, starting pitching just does not go nearly as deep as it used to. And you're going to need guys where in the past, you could count on, a starting pitcher maybe getting into the seventh inning.
Mhm.
Now we're only covering 6, 7, maybe 8 outs a night.
Right.
Now it's 9, 10, 11, 12 outs a night.
Right.
And sometimes and if you're going to have all leverage relievers, short relievers,
Mhm.
you're going to need 4 or 5 guys to get through that
Right.
on a nightly basis. And
It's gonna take up a
nobody
lot of
has
your
that kind of
roster.
arms.
Yeah.
Nobody, well, no, and you just don't have enough arms. You don't have enough
Mhm.
spots in the bullpen to cover that.
Right.
So what do you need? You need some guys that can go multiple innings. This isn't anything new. If you go back to
No.
the late '90s, early 2000 Yankees, we had a couple guys in the bullpen. One of them was Romero Mendoza.
Right.
That Romero could not throw back-to-back days. His arm just didn't react. So whenever he went out there for 2+ innings. And he was very good at doing that, being a swing man in the rotation, out of the rotation. But
Right.
what that did was that was able to save guys like myself, guys like Jeff Nelson, even Mariano, that we
Mhm.
didn't have to pitch every single day
Right.
because you had somebody down there that could eat some innings. Same mentality, a couple decades later, but same mentality that sometimes you need guys to get 6 outs.
That's pretty fascinating. All right, we've got to talk about it because it's the sensation in
It
baseball, and
has
that is
been.
the automated balls and strike system. Rest in peace, CB Buckner. For but I mean, like somebody made the comment the other day that they wish that baseball would force Angel Hernandez to come out of retirement for one
I
game
heard that. I heard
just
that.
to
Like
see
the
what that
All-Star
would
game or
be.
something. Yeah.
Exactly, just to see how many calls he misses. Like the ABS system, I knew that I felt like it was going to be a success just in terms of on the field.
Sure.
But who could have guessed that fans would go as
Oh,
bonkers over the
they've gone nuts.
it's scintillating. The crowds are screaming and yelling, and like it's just so good. And the thing is, crowds do that in tennis, right? Tennis has had that,
Sure.
that thing for a while, but baseball is way more raucous than tennis to begin with. And so this whole just bringing that up, it keeps people engaged. It's absolutely fascinating to
Yeah,
watch.
what it really does is it brings a little bit of drama in the middle of
It
an at bat that
does.
has no drama.
That's
I mean, that's
exactly.
that's what it really does. And
Oh,
yeah,
so
CB
fun.
CB had the bad game,
Ooh,
which unfortunately that's probably not going to be his only
no.
one.
And he
I
missed
think
one
there,
yesterday. Guy stepped right in the middle of first base and he called him. He said he never touched the bag. Like
yeah,
that guy's not having a good season
yeah, and
already.
he's only been doing it for 25, 26
Yeah,
years. But
99
you
is
know
when he
what?
started
CB
now.
has never been a great balls and strike guy. And you know what? And the thing is, in his defense,
Mhm.
first off, it's not nearly as easy as we all
Oh,
think it
it's
is.
incredibly difficult. Are you kidding?
To be an inch here, an inch there, guys throwing, because you have to remember they also don't know what pitch is coming, so
Some
they
of
don't
these
know what
calls,
movements.
like
Yeah.
some of the calls from the ABS, it's like it just a sliver of the baseball. I'm like,
There was
it's
one. There was one. Was it in last night's game? It was in last night's game that it was a third of an inch off the corner, a
just
third.
crazy.
And just the fact that it was questioned, I
Right.
think is remarkable also.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so it's just not that easy.
Mm-mm.
But like I said, CB has never been great, and it bothers him. I mean, there was one
Oh, I'm
instance that
sure.
he put his, he's like, gosh
Yep.
dang it,
I
man.
know. I
Give
can't
a brother a
imagine.
break. The other one, and in our next back to the bullpen, which you
Yeah.
can find on YouTube, you go to ML, what was it? Locked On MLB channel. And that's where you can find back to the bullpen. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how Major League Baseball players have shrunk,
Oh, that
according
is
to the
so cool.
ABS.
Yes,
Yes.
like something like I read that something like 50 or 60 players have gotten smaller than when they
Maybe
got
even
measured.
higher than that, but some
Unbelievable.
it's just a little bit. Some
But
is as
some it's
much
like
as 3 inches.
well, that's so classic though. That's such classic sports. It's like how tall is that guy? 7 feet. Well, he's only 6'10". Like that, it's
Right.
just such a
Right.
like
And
the
it's always been done. But really, the 6 foot club has gotten drastically smaller
it
in Major
has.
League
It
Baseball.
has thanks to
Yeah,
ABS. I
and
love it.
actually, to tell you the truth, there's a couple guys. There's a couple guys that have actually gotten bigger.
Yes, there that
Okay,
is correct.
but I mean, there's some that have gone. Oh, I'm 6'1". You're 5'9". But
Exactly.
for hitters,
Exactly.
and this is a perfect situation for all this to come out,
Right.
because for hitters, they're like,
Yeah.
fine, make me shorter. That makes my strike zone
Exactly.
smaller.
Exactly. I'm telling you right now, the ABS thing is such a fascinating thing to watch because one of the things that it's really shown me is that number one, umpires are pretty good at what
Pretty
they
good.
do.
They
Like this
are.
is if no one has recognized that umpires are actually pretty damn good at making calls on balls and strikes, you see a couple of those ABS calls and tell me you would have picked it right. Like
Right.
it is and
Right.
also there are certain guys in this league who are also very good at
Yeah.
spotting a strike zone. So
Yeah.
there's some catchers, a
Yeah.
couple of hitters, guys that are like, I wouldn't question it.
Yeah,
It's
and
they're so
there
good.
was a game on Sunday to give CB a break. There was a game
Yeah.
on Sunday that there were 10 challenges and 7 were overturned.
Yep.
So, it's not just CB Buckner, but it's
No.
great that we have the ability to do this now, and it has definitely added some drama. So
That's so good.
that back to the bullpen episode that will air at noon tomorrow.
Awesome.
And like I said, you can find us on Locked On MLB channel on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe. But yeah, we're gonna talk about how
It's
Major
so
League
much fun.
Baseball players seem to be shorter today than they
Yeah.
were just a week ago.
And well, apparently they are. And it ain't osteoporosis.
That's right.
Uh, thanks everybody for joining us. Always a blast, and obviously this is going to be a very, very interesting season. For if the first week is any indicator, I'm all in. Like just if nothing else, I just want to watch replays of the ABS system all day long. It's just so much fun. So everybody, thanks again for joining us, and as always, go Astros.
Adios.